On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Shelley Duvall, the uniquely gifted actress best known for her haunting performance as Wendy Torrance in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, died on July 11, 2024, at the age of 75 due to complications from diabetes. Her death was natural, yet it stirred a deep emotional reaction from fans and critics alike, reigniting discussions not only about her career, but also about the emotional cost of fame and the mental health challenges that plagued much of her later life. Duvall rose to prominence in the 1970s, her elfin beauty and offbeat charm making her a favorite of director Robert Altman. Her performances in Three Women, Nashville, and Popeye showcased a woman unafraid to portray fragility, eccentricity, and resilience. But it was her role in The Shining that both cemented her legacy and illustrated the darker side of her era's approach to filmmaking. Kubrick's notoriously intense directing methods, reportedly involving dozens of takes and emotional manipulation, left Duvall physically exhausted and emotionally strained, a process many now view as exploitative. In the decades that followed, Duvall largely withdrew from the public eye. Her later years were marked by reclusiveness and a highly publicized interview in 2016 that revealed significant mental health struggles. At the time, the interview sparked widespread criticism of how media sensationalizes suffering, especially that of women whose vulnerability is mistaken for entertainment. In a world increasingly aware of the need for mental health advocacy, Duvall's story became emblematic of a broader societal reckoning. The immediate consequence of Duvall's passing was a wave of posthumous appreciation for her work. Fans revisited her performances, not just in horror, but in children's television, as the creator of fairy tale theater, where she introduced young audiences to classic stories with warmth and creativity. Tributes poured in, honoring her both as a performer and as a cautionary symbol of the emotional toll that fame and artistic pressure can extract. Duvall's death invites reflection on how society treats its artists, especially women who defy conventional beauty standards or choose to step away from the spotlight. In remembering her, we confront not just her roles, but the price of those performances. Her legacy lives on in the art she left behind, in renewed calls for compassion in creative industries, and in the cult status of films that were once underappreciated. Through film retrospectives, academic analysis, and heartfelt tributes from fellow artists, Shelley Duvall is now rightly recognized not only for her talent, but for her humanity. Laurence Olivier, widely regarded as one of the greatest actors of the 20th century, died of natural causes on July 11, 1989, at the age of 82. His death marked the end of a golden era in theatrical performance, one defined by grandeur, eloquence, and a deep reverence for classical drama. Suffering from a host of ailments in his later years, including a painful muscle disorder, thrombosis, and cancer, Olivier retreated from the stage, but never from the public imagination. Olivier's passing reflected a generational shift in the arts, as the classical traditions he championed gave way to more experimental and contemporary approaches to acting. He was a towering figure of the British stage, mastering Shakespearean roles with both technical brilliance and emotional depth. At a time when film was overtaking live theater as the dominant art form, Olivier bridged the two worlds. His celebrated performances in Hamlet, Henry V, and Richard III brought the bard to wider audiences, marrying the gravitas of the stage with the intimacy of cinema. The immediate aftermath of his death was met with widespread mourning in Britain and abroad. Tributes poured in from fellow actors, directors, and political figures alike. His legacy as the founding director of the National Theatre cemented his influence not only as a performer, but as a cultural architect. He had fought to elevate theater in a modernizing world, and his death prompted renewed discussions about state support for the arts, the role of tradition in an evolving medium, and the necessity of mentorship for the next generation of performers. Olivier's death did not so much amplify his legend as solidify it. In life, he was knighted, made a life peer, becoming Baron Olivier, and awarded an astonishing array of honors, including an Academy Award, a BAFTA Fellowship, and numerous Emmys. In death, he became a symbol of artistic excellence, discipline, and cultural refinement. Statues, biographies, retrospectives, and academic studies have since preserved and examined his contributions. His passing reminds us of the power of performance not only to reflect society, but to shape it. Olivier immortalized kings and commoners alike, revealing the universal truths behind human ambition, frailty, and glory. Through his voice, we continue to hear echoes of past centuries, and in remembering him, we remember our own evolving relationship with legacy, artistry, and the pursuit of greatness. Lady Bird Johnson, former First Lady of the United States and wife of President Lyndon B. Johnson, died of natural causes on July 11, 2007, at the age of 94. Her passing marked the end of an era steeped in transformative civil rights legislation, environmental advocacy, and a redefinition of the First Lady's role in American life. Having suffered a debilitating stroke in 2002 that left her largely unable to speak, Johnson spent her final years in quiet reflection at her Texas home, surrounded by family. Her death, while not unexpected due to her age and declining health, served as a reflective moment for the nation. It prompted both media and political figures to re-examine the often understated but impactful contributions of Lady Bird, particularly during a turbulent period in U.S. history. As First Lady during the 1960s, she navigated an America convulsed by the Vietnam War, racial unrest, and political assassinations. Yet, amid the chaos, she chose to focus on environmental beautification, historic preservation, and mental health reform, areas that reflected both personal passion and a broader national yearning for healing and progress. Her emphasis on conservation, epitomized by the Highway Beautification Act of 1965, spoke to a growing awareness of environmental degradation during an era of rapid industrial expansion. In many ways, she anticipated the environmental movement of the 1970s, making her one of its unspoken forerunners. Her initiatives reflected a value system that emphasized stewardship, civility, and dignity, qualities sorely needed at a time when the American political fabric felt frayed. The immediate consequence of her passing was a surge of recognition from across the political spectrum. Lawmakers, environmentalists, and historians hailed her as a visionary, a unifier, and a gentle force behind one of the most consequential presidencies in modern U.S. history. Her death reignited appreciation for soft power, how influence can be wielded through charm, wisdom, and quiet determination rather than political office or force. Lady Bird Johnson's legacy lives on not only through legislation and natural spaces, but also through institutions like the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center and her extensive archival contributions to the LBJ Presidential Library. Her death reminds us that legacy is not always built on conflict or charisma. Sometimes it's shaped by the steady hand of care, vision, and enduring service. In remembering her, we honor a different model of power, one rooted in grace and purpose. Frances Langford, an American singer, actress, and entertainer, passed away from heart failure on July 11, 2005, at the age of 92. Her death marked the quiet close of a chapter in entertainment history, one deeply connected to the spirit of World War II America and the evolution of American popular culture. Known affectionately as the G.I. Nightingale, Langford's career was defined not just by her talents in radio, film, and music, but by her profound contributions to morale during the war years. Langford's death was peaceful and natural, reflecting a life that had been lived in service to both art and country. In the era she came to prominence, the 1930s through the 1950s, celebrity was often intertwined with national identity. As the voice behind "I'm in the Mood for Love," she became a musical symbol of romantic escapism during the Great Depression and the anxieties of wartime. Her extensive work with Bob Hope's USO tours, including multiple overseas performances for American troops, embodied the era's values of patriotism, sacrifice, and the unifying power of entertainment. When Langford died, the immediate public response was one of nostalgic reverence rather than shock. Her passing prompted many to recall a time when entertainers were more than celebrities. They were ambassadors of hope. Tributes emphasized her role in lifting spirits on the front lines, highlighting how her songs were often the last comfort soldiers heard before battle. Though not often spotlighted in contemporary media, her legacy endured in the hearts of veterans and in the historical records of wartime performance. Langford's death underscored the fading presence of World War II-era cultural icons, reminding society of the fragility of memory and the urgency of preservation. Her career demonstrated how soft power, through song and kindness, can influence morale as profoundly as political leadership. In the digital age, where fame is often fleeting and performative, her enduring impact serves as a model of quiet, steadfast legacy. Today, Langford is immortalized through archived radio broadcasts, classic films, and the naming of the Francis Langford Promenade in Lakeland, Florida. Her story is preserved in museums, documentaries, and war memorials, echoing the idea that even as voices fall silent, their echoes can inspire across generations. Her life and death remind us that memory is not just history, it is gratitude set to melody. Satoru Iwata, the revered president and CEO of Nintendo, passed away on July 11, 2015, at the age of 55 from complications related to a bile duct tumor. His death was sudden in the public eye, although he had previously undergone surgery in 2014 and missed major industry events, such as E3, due to his health. Iwata's passing was not only a loss to the company he helped reshape, but also a poignant moment for the global gaming community, who regarded him as a visionary leader and a beloved developer at heart. Iwata's death reflected a modern era in which technological innovation had become a defining force in global culture. As a programmer turned executive, he championed accessibility and creativity in gaming, helping Nintendo pivot away from the hardware arms race and toward experiences that appeal to all ages and skill levels. His leadership saw the rise of the Nintendo DS and the Wii, two of the best-selling consoles in history, offering playful, imaginative alternatives to the increasingly complex, graphics-driven industry standards. The immediate consequence of Iwata's death was a wave of public mourning unprecedented for a corporate figure in the tech world. Fans across the globe created tribute artwork, held vigils, and shared memories of how his games shaped their lives. Within the company, Iwata's absence was deeply felt. His successor, Tatsumi Kimishima, inherited a legacy of innovation and a fan base expecting the continuation of Iwata's unique vision, ultimately paving the way for the Nintendo Switch, a console many considered aligned with Iwata's ethos of fun and versatility. Iwata's death amplified his legend rather than diminished it. His direct communication with fans through the charming Iwata Asks interviews and Nintendo Directs painted a picture of a humble, passionate leader. In an era where corporate detachment is often the norm, Iwata's sincerity and approachability stood out. His iconic words, On my business card, I am a corporate president. In my mind, I am a game developer. But in my heart, I am a gamer. Cemented his status not just as an executive, but as one of us. His memory is preserved not only through Nintendo's continued success, but through fan tributes, documentary retrospectives, and the continued influence of his philosophies on design and user experience. In honoring Iwata, we see how mortality, when met with authenticity and creativity, can elevate a life into enduring legacy, etched not in stone, but in pixels, joy, and play. Barnard Hughes, an accomplished stage and screen actor known for his dignified presence and gentle wit, passed away on July 11, 2006, at the age of 90 from natural causes. His death marked the end of a long and varied career that spanned over 6 decades and included roles on Broadway, television, and film. Hughes was perhaps best known for his performances as kind-hearted but quirky older men, such as the titular character in Day, for which he won a Tony Award, and his roles in The Lost Boys, Tron, and Mr. Merlin. Hughes' passing was not shocking or sudden, but it resonated with a particular generation of audiences who saw in him a rare ability to embody characters with warmth, humility, and a quiet strength. He came of age during a time when American entertainment was undergoing seismic shifts, from post-war stage drama to the golden age of television and eventually to blockbuster cinema. Through each phase, Hughes remained a steady, respected figure. Never a headline-grabbing star, but a beloved presence whose performances spoke to the value of craftsmanship, grace, and subtlety. His death occurred at a time when the entertainment industry was becoming increasingly dominated by youth and spectacle. In contrast, Hughes represented a fading era that valued the theater as a training ground and character actors as essential to storytelling. The immediate consequences of his passing were quieter than those of pop culture icons, but his absence was deeply felt in the Broadway and television communities. Tributes poured in from actors and playwrights who praised his dedication to his art and his ability to elevate every scene he touched. In retrospect, Hughes's death did not so much shift history as it did underscore a vanishing sensibility in American entertainment. He symbolized the kind of actor who saw the performance itself, not celebrity, as the reward. As such, his legacy is one of quiet reverence, preserved in archives of live theater, classic television reruns, and in the memories of those fortunate enough to see him perform live. Barnard Hughes reminds us that the memory of an artist need not be grandiose to be enduring. We immortalize such figures not just through statues or headlines, but through the way their work continues to teach, comfort, and inspire. In that sense, Hughes' death invites reflection on the quiet power of humility and the lasting beauty of a life dedicated to sincere storytelling. Arturo Gotti, the Italian-Canadian boxing legend known for his grit, heart, and dramatic comebacks in the ring, died under mysterious circumstances on July 11, 2009, in a hotel room in Brazil. Initially ruled a suicide, Gotti's death was later reclassified as a homicide, though no one was ever officially charged. The ambiguity surrounding his final moments created a storm of speculation and sorrow, emblematic of the volatility and chaos that often shadow those who live intensely public lives defined by violence, glory, and personal demons. Gotti's death came just 2 years after his retirement, at a time when the boxing world still remembered his legendary trilogies with Mickey Ward, bouts that epitomized the brutal beauty of the sport. His career was marked by a relentless fighting style, absorbing punishment that would leave most unconscious, only to surge back in triumph. This warrior image, celebrated in the early 2000s when boxing was regaining popularity through emotionally charged storytelling, made his passing especially haunting. That a man so resilient in the ring could fall under such murky and quiet conditions underscored the fragile boundary between myth and mortality. The immediate consequence of his death was an outpouring of grief from fans and fighters alike. Gotti was more than a boxer. He was a symbol of perseverance. His passing also reignited debates about mental health and the long-term effects of repeated head trauma among athletes, as well as the vulnerability of public figures behind closed doors. The fact that his widow was initially arrested and later released without charges only deepened the mystery, turning his death into a real-life noir that captured media attention worldwide. Arturo Gotti's death amplified his legend. Like many before him, James Dean, Bruce Lee, or Tupac, Gotti's story ended abruptly, preserving his image at its most heroic and troubled. He has since been immortalized through documentaries, Hall of Fame inductions, and countless retrospectives of his most unforgettable fights. His name remains a benchmark for courage in boxing circles. His tragic departure reminds us of humanity's complicated relationship with power, pain, and legacy. We idolize figures like Gotti not just for their talent, but for their willingness to endure suffering for greatness. In remembering them, through highlight reels, articles, or murals, we confront our own mortality and celebrate the indomitable will to fight, both in sport and in life.